welcome to another episode of Money and Business. I am Keisha Bailey, your host today, and I am very excited to have you here. For those of you who may be new to me, I'm a financial educator, adjunct lecturer, and I've been in the financial sector for 18 years. During this time, I've worked in Jamaica and Canada, and I help clients to grow their portfolios exponentially. That's what I do. I know how to grow money very well. I've transitioned from the corporate life, and these days, my company, Profit Jumpstarter, and we spend our time helping individuals to live a life of abundance and using the money they have to turn into the money they want to have. So during our show, Money and Business, you will get a chance to connect with real life entrepreneurs from a range of industries who will be on the show sharing their journey that they've used to get to success, and they're sharing their money lessons along the way. So before we get started, let's introduce today's guests. But make sure, like the channel, subscribe to the channel. This is how we continue to grow our platform and ensure that as many persons as possible continue to learn about investing, improving their personal finances, and we can build wealth faster. So today's guest is Marci Grossman. Marci is a financial literacy educator, and she's the author of Money Marci's Guide to Financial Literacy. She has decades of experience working in public accounting while freelancing for several online accounting publications. Welcome to the show, and I'm very excited to talk to another financial educator. Welcome, Marci.
Thank you for having me, Keisha. It's great to be here.
Nice. I'm very happy to have you on, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think it's going to be extremely enriching. So, Marci, could you tell us a little bit about your journey into financial education, starting with your early years as a bookkeeper's assistant at the age of 14, which is amazing, and then transitioning into your love affair with all things money?
So, I'm a second generation accountant, which means that my dad put me to work as a bookkeeper. Back then, we didn't have the computers and all the software we had. So, when there were columns of numbers that needed to be totaled and whatever else, rather than him doing it, he set me up with an adding machine, and I started doing basic bookkeeping tasks to support his work. And then I went off to college and considered a lot of majors and ended up in accounting. It was a good fit. It was what I needed. It's what I knew, and worked well for me. And so I graduated and started practicing accounting and became a CPA. And over time, when I was talking to clients, whether they had a lot of money or didn't have a lot of money, whether they were young or old, there were always questions. There was always something they didn't know, and it always surprised me because I had assumed, you know, I was always caught off guard by something that someone would be
Yeah.
surprised by. And then about 10 years ago, I left the bulk of public accounting to go work for a nonprofit as a controller. And there I
Nice.
was working with people in a different way, but a lot of money and a lot of activity. And again, I was surprised by the variety of people that there were things they just didn't understand. And over time I'd found that explaining things and helping people to understand was I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
And
Same. Yeah.
right. And so that's how I got here. And with my writing background, I said, you know what, let's create a website, let's write a book, let's try and make this information accessible to more people.
Yeah, for sure. And you've spent a lot of years in accounting, as you mentioned, and helping companies during this time. But for entrepreneurs who may not have that extensive expertise or even just a solid grasp of accounting or basic bookkeeping, help us to understand, why is it important to be tracking your numbers, And how can entrepreneurs equip themselves with some of these skills around accounting, bookkeeping, knowing their financial numbers?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you've got the double edge of you've got to know how your business is doing, and you've also got to know how yourself is doing. And sometimes entrepreneurs end up kind of mixing those numbers together, and they have to be kept separate. They're two separate entities. And usually, the first thing I tell someone who's starting a business is you need to have a separate credit card, you need to have a separate checking
Yeah.
account, and you need to keep that money separate. So that when you're transferring money back and forth, which happens certainly as you pay yourself from your business, it happens that you make it very clean and very clear. I tell everyone you've got to leave footsteps. Everything you do, you have to leave footsteps so that you can justify, so that you can track, so that you can understand uh, where you're making money and where your time is well invested.
Makes sense for sure. And so, with those tips and the importance of knowing your numbers, what are three pointers that you think every entrepreneur should know about their money?
You should always know how much you have.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know your money, you can't grow your money.
And you should know what you owe. You should be aware of where you're putting your money.
Yeah.
It's too easy to lose track, especially of the smaller amounts. And $5 is as important as 50 or 500, um, because otherwise those little amounts surprise you, and surprises are not good.
No, no,
Not
no.
those kind of surprises.
Yeah.
And work with people you trust, but always talk to them and ask questions and make sure you understand what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like myself, you left the corporate world behind. I was in the corporate jungle for a long time. You've left the corporate world to become a financial literacy educator. So, what exactly drives your passion around educating persons around their personal finances and money?
Well, as I said, it was because I saw so many people from so many different directions and situations that didn't understand money and they were getting themselves in trouble. And it's much easier to do something the right way than it is to try and correct it, especially where money's involved.
Yeah,
And so that's what I've been working on, is just finding ways to make that knowledge accessible, because you keep hearing it. I'm sure you've heard it as much as I have, or you see it on the internet, financial literacy this, and people don't understand, and it's like, well, then let's educate them.
exactly. Let's do it. Let's march out there and feed the world with financial education. So let's talk about money mistakes, right? As we think about building education, we want to avoid mistakes. What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see persons making, and possibly how can they come back from some of these mistakes if possible?
Well, first off, I believe you can always come back from a mistake. It might mean you have to work a little harder. It might mean you have to spend a little less and cut really down on your expenditures, but I believe everyone can come back from a mistake. And I think that's the most important thing, is to know that you can come back. Unfortunately, sometimes that does include filing for bankruptcy, but it's important to know that you can always come back. But the biggest thing, I think, is not knowing what you have and not knowing what
Hmm.
you're spending, not staying aware of those. Um, and I think not respecting your limits on spending. I know I can spend X, but that over there looks really nice, and you
Yeah,
know what, I've been good. I deserve it. Well, but you know you have to think about, you're going to have to pay for it somewhere else, and doing that. I think another thing is people don't know their credit score or their credit history or how to get that information so that they can see, because all of a sudden they're going to buy a car or buy a house or rent an apartment, and all of these things, they're going to pull your credit score. They're going to pull your credit history, and they're going to charge you if that score
Mhm.
is low or that history is bad. So that's going to cost you money again. Um, and I think people are too quick to say, well, I can afford the payment.
Yeah, people are saying they will live in credit card life. So, oh, monthly payment, that's fine.
Right, but then you get a monthly payment here and a monthly payment there, and this store wants you to get their credit card, so now you've got a monthly payment there, and all of a sudden, your monthly payments don't leave you any room to do anything. And, especially if you've got like a mortgage or a car, you can't say, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just going to pay you a little less this month. They don't like that.
Repossession coming for you. Yeah.
Right, they don't like that. I think really the very biggest mistake, if at all possible, is to live below your means. That to give yourself that little bit of elbow room, because you're putting away savings and
Yeah.
retirement and you're doing those things, but live below your means. I can afford this. I got to get myself in the screen, but I'm only going to buy this. As
Yeah.
opposed to I can afford this, so I think I'll get a raise next year and I think there'll be a bonus. So, you know, there's so many mistakes. And when I was thinking about, because often I'm asked common money mistakes, and every time I sit down and write that list, I come up with something. Well, you know what? Maybe this time this is more important, based on a
Hmm.
story I heard, based on someone I talked to. Um, there's just so many money mistakes. Impatience. The other day, I made a donation somewhere, and the website froze.
Ah.
And I waited a few minutes, and I didn't get an email. So I said, I guess it didn't go through. So I went and did it again.
Oh,
And a day
wow.
later, they both went through.
The-
Um, but that happens to all of us on the internet. We're so used to things being fast that when something doesn't come fast, we assume it didn't happen, and that doesn't always happen. And then you might end up with two of an item, or you might end up with
Mhm.
whatever because of that. And it's just, and the internet. I mean, so social media, I think, is heck on all of our finances because everyone posts their best life.
The YOLO life. Yeah. Living my
We
best life.
see we see their vacation. We see them going out to dinner. We don't see them trying to balance their checkbook when they don't have any money. We don't see, that their credit card got declined. We only see the best things that everyone does. And
Yeah.
then you want to keep up with the Joneses. Well, I make about the same as he does, and I want to take that kind of vacation.
Yeah. And then it just promotes really bad habits. So let me probably share or ask you, has there been any money mistake you've made that you want to share? Because we're all human. I think it may help our audience to think, well, Marcy's the expert, Keisha is the expert. Have they made any mistakes?
Well, I just said the other day I made one when I was making a donation and I
Right.
wasn't patient.
So
Fortunately it was for a
lesson
small amount
learned
of money.
there.
Lesson learned, but unfortunately that's a lesson I have to learn over and over again because patience is not, we expect it to be fast. Um,
Has there been any other ones that you'd want to mention, or
well, there were times when I was younger that I didn't put away as much in retirement as I could have. Um, I have been very fortunate. I have, that the mistakes that I've made have been small. Once in a while you lose track of paperwork and you don't make a credit card payment. But if you miss it one time or whatever, the fee is small and sometimes they'll negotiate it away if as you've got a good history.
yeah,
Um, but
that's
as I
hit me a couple of times.
right, right,
Yeah.
there's so much going on. The paper got lost on the desk and it didn't get paid. Um,
Or
So,
even the second bill comes and you're like, oh no, like double payment on there, totally forgot. So that happens, life happens, lots going on. Let's talk
right.
about budgeting for a bit. So a lot of people think budgeting is a really bad word, don't want to hear it, not budgeting, that's not for me. But I believe in budgeting with abundance. I'm
So,
very big on that. So I wanted you to possibly share your views around budgeting and how can entrepreneurs manage their budgets both on the business and their personal side.
so budgeting is one of the topics I talk about most. Everyone wants to understand, and I think it's one of the most important topics. I think budgeting is the foundation for making good financial decisions because it starts by telling you what you have and what your expenses are, and it gives you the information to make good
Yep.
decisions. So on my website, I actually have 3 videos uh, to explain budgeting, to make it easy step by step. I have free spreadsheets available to download from there for budgeting purposes. And since it's a spreadsheet, I've got them filled out with the information that was from my book. But that's a starting point. It's a spreadsheet. You can just take that information and put in your own information. And what I did with the budgeting spreadsheet is I have the expenses by week, month,
Nice.
quarterly, and annually, and then it
Detail.
annualizes at the
Detail.
bottom.
Yeah.
And then for the income, I think I have it weekly, biweekly, semi-monthly, and annually because typically that's how people earn their money. Obviously,
Yeah.
if you're an entrepreneur, you can't say, oh, I'm going to get this paycheck and that paycheck. So since my website is more toward the personal side of things, I don't have anything specifically geared toward business, but the numbers all work the same. The expense side especially works the same, that your bills are going to come in whatever time frame from the vendor. For businesses, it's a little bit different than it is for personal because you've
Yeah.
got different, because it's so different depending on the industry you're in. Um, you know, me
And the
selling my
sales
books,
cycle, right? You could have lengthy, you close on a contract, but they take months to pay it out
right,
for sure.
right. So it's a little bit different. However, you can see your receivables, you can see your payables, you can include them. You want to look at trying to do budgeting. I think a year is the most useful. You can then backtrack it from a business and say, okay, I think it'll be 1/12, but of course, taxes are due at certain points in the year, or your insurances are due, or maybe you're a seasonal business, and you want to take that into account and be able to um, use your best time frame to come
Yeah.
up with how to figure out how to come up with a reasonable budget for a business. Hopefully, if you're a business or an entrepreneur, you are working with an accountant or your bookkeeper in your office is able to help you come up with a budget or a forecast, which is similar to a budget, but works slightly differently to give you that information. It's the most important tool you can use to facilitate the best decisions you can make.
Yeah, for sure. And as we think, even budgeting helps us along that path so that we grow our business, we grow our personal finances as well. And the ultimate goal for a lot of persons is retirement. And retirement planning is key, it's critical, but entrepreneurs see it differently because there are more nuances. There's no, salaried paycheck each time. There's no employer to contribute with a pension arrangement. So, give us some ways that you think entrepreneurs can set themselves up for retirement while at the same time growing their business.
So you can set it up the same way any other business would. It's well, in the U.S., it's a self-employed plan, so it's a self-employed retirement plan similar to an IRA, and
Hmm.
you can make the checks right out of your business, right into your SEP. You can make it out of your personal account. Um, If it's nice and clear, your accountant will know where to put it on your return, because depending on the nature of your business and the tax returns you file is who should be filing those. But the plans are available, and you can contribute significantly more than you can to just an IRA if you have a self-employed plan. It's got to be a monthly expense. You've just got to put it down there on your budget, on your list of
Budget,
things that have to be paid. You've got to make a plan. What is it they say? If those who fail to plan, plan to fail.
plan to fail.
Uh,
Yep.
if you want retirement, you've got to pay for it.
That's what you need to do so that you can have one, right? No free lunch for sure. So
Right.
let's flip over to Marci the entrepreneur and talking about your experiences. I know you've been growing your business. It's been a great journey, but you also enjoy volunteering. So let's talk a little bit about that side of things.
Well, a lot of my business is volunteering because I'm trying to make it, because I think it's so important. So, um, all the things that I make free on my website, and
Hmm.
a lot of the groups that I talk to explain financial literacy and to make it available to them. I can't do everything for free, but it's important to make it accessible to help people get things started out, so that they can make those better decisions. And it feels so good when you see someone's light bulb go off over their head, that they understand. Yes, exactly. um, I've been taking my book and I've been leaving it in little free libraries to make it more accessible to people.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really good. Really, really good. So, is there any one story or person who you've helped along the way? Would you want to probably share with us someone that you really got great value from your knowledge and the fact that you were able to support them in terms of their education around finances?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is going to sound a little silly. Um, they had been doing their own tax return,
Okay.
and every year they owed taxes. And we were just had run into each other at a meeting, and they didn't understand that they could just go to their employer, because these were W-2 people, these weren't entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Um, they could go to their employer and ask them to withhold more taxes so that they didn't owe a big tax at the end of the year.
Yeah. Ah, a lot of people don't know that for sure. Yes.
Right. I mean, so it's those kind of little things. And again, this was an educated person. This was a person making decent money, and they didn't know to ask a question. They didn't know to that options were out there for them. And that was kind of that felt really meaningful in a silly way. Um,
No, it super is because instead of having this giant payment at tax time to make, which is a lot, 'cause I mean, you've spent the year, you've lived. The last thing you're expecting is, hey, you owe the government several thousands of dollars and you need to pay it in the next 30 or 45 days.
Right, and I've had other people that have had similar stories. They come to me, well, what am I going to do? I owe all this tax. Well, have you got the money to pay your tax? Yeah, but I don't want to write the check. Well, you can adjust your withholding. It's it's really that simple. Um, an interesting thing that's happened. I had just written a blog post about it a few weeks ago. Is people who get to retirement and who have put their money away and are afraid to spend it. So
Ah,
they're still they were living on, let's say, 40,000, and they were doing fine and they were doing everything they needed to do, and now they've retired, and between social security and their pension and their required distributions and all of that, they've got 50 or 60. They're living at 40 or even less because they're so afraid, because they're not putting money away and they don't know how to get um, through that. And it's like, no, this, you earn this, you did the work, you get the gravy now. And
Yeah. It's the uncertainty, what does the future hold? How long will my retirement be? That's hard to think about.
yes, but if you're generating more than you spend, it's okay to spend some of it. I'm
True,
not telling them go crazy. I'm not telling them go out and spend all of it. I'm just saying, you know, if you've got an extra $10, you can spend five.
true,
You
true.
know, you're not eating down your principal. You're not, you get to enjoy it. I think it's important when you've done the work that you get the rewards.
Absolutely, for sure. And as we talk about rewards, what else do you enjoy doing outside of helping others? What's your reward outside of
Uh,
helping persons with finances?
I play music.
Nice,
I um, I spend time with my family, and we do weird and silly things together, and that makes us happy.
nice. Yes, as it should be. So this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Marci. It was great hearing about your journey. So let our audience know, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me through my website. And anybody who has any questions of financial things that they'd love to see me explore, I love having topics that I know would be meaningful to someone. And my book is available on Amazon. It's Money Marci's Guide to Financial Literacy. And there's also a link on my website to it. And it's been great being here, and I hope people learned something.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone will take a lot of insights from our discussion. This was great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Keisha.
All right, there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Money and Business, where we have entrepreneurs just like Marci sharing their journey and their secrets to success and much more. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. But if you want to continue to learn about wealth creation and living in abundance, check me out IG, Profit Jumpstarter. YouTube, our channel is Profit Jumpstarter. On Twitter, we're Profit Jumpstart. And of course, my website is profitjumpstarter.com. If you also want to find a self paced course where you can learn more about investing, my money blueprint course is for you. Check it out on my website. It's profitjumpstarter.com/money blueprint. So remember, knowledge is nothing without execution. You learned a lot today. Go implement it. And until our next episode, I'll see you again. Bye.